Every day, I share another story from the Golden Age and the moments that shaped an unforgettable era. If you'd like to keep these memories alive with me, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means a lot. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. Richard Boone's son has finally stepped forward, confirming long-whispered rumors about Boone's private life, and suddenly the man behind the legend feels even more complex and real. Richard Boone was born Richard Allen Boone on June 18, 1917 in Los Angeles, California, and his story already sounded larger than life from the start. He was the grandson of the legendary frontiersman Daniel Boone, a bloodline that felt almost destined, considering the hard-edged authority he would later bring to the screen. From the very beginning, Boone carried a presence that felt earned, not borrowed. But acting wasn't some overnight decision or flashy dream for him. Boone took a different road, attending Stanford University where he studied drama while diving deep into literature, philosophy, and the arts. These interests shaped him early, giving his performances that sharp, thoughtful edge long before Hollywood ever came knocking. He wasn't chasing fame, he was building a mind. Then came World War II, and Boone didn't sit it out. He served as a navigator in the U.S. Navy, flying dangerous combat missions in the Pacific Theater. Those experiences hit hard and stayed with him for life. The realism, the emotional weight, the quiet weariness people later felt in his roles wasn't acting tricks, it was lived experience. That kind of depth can't be taught in any class. After the war, Boone came back different, more focused, more intense. While others chased quick roles, he sharpened his craft, studying under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. There, he locked into a disciplined, emotionally grounded style that made him stand out fast. Boone didn't fake toughness, he understood it. Early on, Hollywood kept casting him as villains, soldiers, and hardened authority figures. Standing over 6 feet tall with a deep, commanding voice, Boone dominated the screen even in small roles. You couldn't ignore him. But everything changed in 1957 when he landed the role that flipped the Western genre on its head, Paladin in Have Gun Will Travel. Paladin wasn't your typical gunslinger, and Boone made sure of that. This was a cultured, highly educated mercenary who quoted Shakespeare, charged premium fees, and lived by his own strict code of ethics. Dressed in black and staying at San Francisco's upscale Carlton Hotel, Paladin was equal parts philosopher and gunfighter. He preferred reason over violence, but when justice called, he didn't hesitate. Boone pushed the show to another level, and not everyone liked it. He demanded strong scripts, deep moral questions, and smart dialogue, often clashing with network executives who underestimated the audience. Boone knew viewers could handle complexity, and he proved them wrong. Under his influence, Have Gun Will Travel became one of the most respected westerns of its era, pulling in adults and kids alike and setting a new standard. Even after the show, Boone refused to coast. He kept choosing roles that challenged him, appearing in films like The Tall T, where he delivered a chilling performance as an intelligent, menacing outlaw. He later starred alongside John Wayne in Big Jake and took on sharp, politically charged material in The Kremlin Letter. Boone had range, and he wasn't afraid to use it. Hero or villain, Boone often blurred the line, making characters feel real instead of clean-cut. In the 1970s, he found fresh success with Heck Ramsey, playing a former gunfighter turned forensic-minded detective. Once again, Boone brought brains and evolution to a genre role that could have been flat in the wrong hands. Through it all, Boone stayed committed to portraying men who questioned themselves, adapted, and grew. That mindset didn't just define his career, it defined the man behind the rumors, the screen, and the legend. The final stretch of Richard Boone's screen career was anything but quiet, and he kept proving why his presence still hit hard every time he appeared. Even as Hollywood shifted around him, Boone stayed locked in, bringing depth, authority, and that unmistakable edge that made him impossible to ignore. In 1974, he appeared in The Great Niagara, followed by Against a Crooked Sky in 1975, projects that let him further sharpen those rugged, world-weary characters he played so naturally. Around that same time, Boone reunited with John Wayne for the third time, joining him in what would become Wayne's final and deeply symbolic film, The Shootist, in 1976. The moment carried serious weight. Boone, facing serious health struggles of his own, stood beside an aging legend in a story centered on mortality, legacy, and the closing chapter of a cinematic era. The chemistry felt real because it was real. Even while continuing his film work, Boone shifted his focus back to where it all started. In the mid-1970s, he returned to New York City and the neighborhood playhouse, the same respected institution where he had trained years earlier. This time, Boone wasn't a student, he was the teacher. He passed down decades of hard-earned experience to a new generation of actors who quickly realized they were learning from the real thing. People said Boone's presence in the classroom was intense but motivating. He didn't sugarcoat the craft. Shaped by a lifetime of stage and screen work and a deep respect for discipline, Boone taught acting as something earned, not handed out. That same mindset carried into his later roles as well. In God's Gun, 1976, Boone embraced the gritty tone of the spaghetti western, sharing the screen with Lee Van Cleef and Jack Palance. The role showed his versatility and his willingness to lean into darker, tougher material without losing control of the character. He stayed sharp, no matter the genre. He followed that with the adventurous fantasy film The Last Dinosaur in 1977, then took part in the stylish remake of The Big Sleep in 1978. Boone proved he could move with the times, adapting to changing cinematic trends while still keeping his signature intensity intact. He didn't chase relevance, he carried it with him. One of Boone's most unforgettable late-career performances didn't even involve being on screen. In 1977, he lent his deep, menacing voice to the dragon Smaug in the animated adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit. His performance gave the creature intelligence, arrogance, and real danger. For generations of fantasy fans, that voice became the dragon. Boone's final screen appearances came with Winter Kills and The Bounty Blade, both released in 1979. Even as his health declined, his performances never lost their authority or emotional weight. There was no phoning it in. These roles closed out his career with quiet intensity, marking the end of a powerful run and leaving behind a legacy built on strong characters and serious storytelling. Off-screen, Richard Boone's personal life carried just as many layers as the roles he played. It was shaped by love, change, and long-lasting family connections. Boone married 3 times over the course of his life, with each relationship reflecting a different chapter of his journey. His first marriage to Jane Hopper began in 1937, when Boone was still a young man figuring out his direction. The marriage lasted until 1940 and unfolded during a time when ambition and uncertainty went side by side. It was part of his early foundation, even if it didn't last. Nearly a decade later, Boone married Mimi Kelly in 1949. Though their marriage ended in 1950, it came at a crucial moment in his life. Boone was sharpening his craft, pushing himself harder, and inching closer to the career that would soon define him. Every chapter, personal or professional, played a role in shaping the man audiences would come to know. The most talked about chapter of Richard Boone's life didn't unfold on a soundstage. It played out behind closed doors, and for years it stayed wrapped in speculation. Now, Boone's son has stepped in to clear the air, confirming long-standing rumors while separating myth from reality. According to him, Boone was nothing like the one-note tough man many imagined. Behind the commanding voice and iron stare was a deeply private man who guarded his personal world fiercely. Boone valued independence above almost everything, and that mindset shaped both his relationships and his reputation. His son explained that Boone struggled with balancing family life and an all-consuming career, a tension that followed him for decades. Fame never softened him, and it never fully satisfied him either. Boone's third marriage to Claire McAloon in 1951 became the longest and most stable chapter of his personal life. Together, they had a son, and despite Boone's demanding schedule, he remained emotionally invested in being a father. His son has said Boone showed love quietly, through presence, advice, and example, rather than grand gestures. He wasn't flashy at home. He was firm, thoughtful, and deeply principled. Rumors over the years painted Boone as distant or difficult, and his son didn't deny the complexity. He confirmed that Boone could be intense, stubborn, and emotionally guarded, especially when under pressure. But he pushed back against exaggerated claims, saying, "People mistook discipline for coldness." Boone believed strength came from control, not chaos. Health challenges also played a major role in Boone's later years, something the public rarely saw. His son confirmed that Boone faced serious illness while still working, choosing not to step away even when the toll was heavy. He didn't want sympathy, and he didn't want excuses. Boone believed work gave him purpose, especially when his body began to fail him. At home, Boone was known for his love of books, debate, and quiet routines. He encouraged curiosity, critical thinking, and self-reliance. According to his son, Boone often said that thinking matters more than talking, a belief that shaped how he raised his family and chose his roles. He wasn't chasing applause, he was chasing meaning. As the years passed, Boone became more reflective, aware that his time was limited. He spoke openly with his family about legacy, not in terms of fame, but in terms of character. His son shared that Boone wanted to be remembered as someone who stayed true to himself, even when it cost him comfort or approval. When Richard Boone passed away in 1981, the public mourned a screen legend. But his son says the real story lives beyond the camera. It's the story of a disciplined mind, a guarded heart, and a man who lived by a personal code that never bent for popularity. The rumors may finally be confirmed, but the truth is far more human, complex, and powerful than gossip ever suggested. Those early marriages, though short-lived, were part of the very human story behind Richard Boone's imposing screen image. They reflected a man still learning, still adjusting, and still searching for balance while building both a life and a career in a demanding industry. Long before stability found him, Boone was navigating ambition, pressure, and personal uncertainty all at once. That sense of stability finally arrived in 1951 when Boone married Claire McAloon, the woman who would remain his wife for the rest of his life. Their marriage lasted more than 3 decades, enduring until Boone's death, and it became the anchor of his private world. With Claire, Boone built a family life that stood in sharp contrast to the violent and morally complex characters he so often portrayed on screen. Together, they had a son, Peter Boone, who briefly followed in his father's footsteps. As a child actor, Peter appeared in several episodes of Have Gun Will Travel, the iconic Western that cemented Richard Boone's place as one of television's most commanding leading men. These moments offered a rare look at Boone, not just as a star, but as a father inviting his child into his professional world. For decades, Richard Boone carefully maintained an image of strength and authority. His gravelly voice, intense stare, and commanding presence made him unforgettable, projecting toughness and moral complexity with ease. Yet behind the praise and admiration was a deeply private struggle that Boone guarded fiercely from the public eye. It wasn't until years later, through the honest and painful revelations shared by his son, that the full truth began to surface. According to Peter Boone, the rumors that had quietly circulated for years were not exaggerations, but pieces of a much larger and more troubling reality. What the public saw was only part of the story. Richard Boone's son revealed that his father lived what could only be described as a hidden life, one marked by chronic pain, physical decline, and emotional strain caused by a serious illness that followed him for years. Even while continuing to work and present himself as steady and resilient, Boone's private world was increasingly shaped by discomfort and exhaustion. The disease slowly drained his strength, turning everyday life into a constant battle with pain. Those closest to him watched as the man celebrated for toughness endured a quiet internal struggle that few ever saw. His physical suffering was made more complicated by long-standing habits Boone himself found difficult to break. Peter Boone confirmed that his father smoked heavily and consumed alcohol for many years. These were not short-term behaviors, but deeply ingrained patterns formed long before Boone's final decline. While they offered temporary relief, they ultimately intensified his physical suffering. In the final month of his life, the damage caused by years of smoking and drinking became impossible to ignore. His health deteriorated rapidly, accelerating his decline and casting a shadow over his final days. The contrast between his public strength and private reality became painfully clear. Perhaps the most heartbreaking moment came when Boone spoke honestly with his son about his addiction. In a rare moment of openness, he admitted his alcoholism without excuses or dramatization, saying, "I drank until my throat burned and it made me unable to drink anymore." That confession revealed not a legend, but a deeply human man facing his limits. He confessed without bravado, exposing desperation instead of denial. The words didn't sound dramatic or performative. They sounded exhausted and raw. Boone showed full awareness of the damage he was doing to himself and to the people who loved him most, yet he felt powerless to stop it. "I know it's harmful, but I can't control myself," Boone admitted, a statement that revealed painful clarity rather than excuses. He went even further, acknowledging that something inside him felt broken. "There's something wrong with me doing it, even with the intervention of my loved ones," he said, making it clear this wasn't about ignorance or rebellion. These words exposed a struggle that ran deeper than alcohol itself, pointing to the inner conflict and emotional weight that addiction often carries. Despite the concern, pleading, and steady support from family, Boone remained trapped in a cycle he could neither fully escape nor surrender to. Through his son's revelations, a clearer picture emerged of a man fighting himself every day while still showing up for work and life as best he could. Richard Boone comes into focus not just as a celebrated actor, but as a deeply human figure, shaped by discipline, pain, and moments of hard honesty. His story isn't rooted in scandal or shock value, but in quiet tragedy. He was admired by millions, yet carried immense suffering in silence at a time when such struggles were rarely spoken about or openly acknowledged. Understanding Boone's private life allows audiences to see beyond the legend and recognize the personal cost of enduring serious illness and addiction without modern support systems. It reframes his strength, not as invincibility, but as endurance. Richard Boone's final chapter unfolded with dignity, physical suffering, and a sense of closure that mirrored the complexity of his life both on and off screen. He passed away on January 10th, 1981.